This headline right here, US debt ceiling deal. What has to happen now to get it passed? So we know we're dealing with a divided Congress right now. The Republicans control the House, the Democrats control the Senate and the presidency. So, the tensions are flaring, and this is what has to happen. Lawmakers are scrambling to push through Biden-McCarthy deal by June 5th to avoid a default disaster. Now they knew this was coming, really. So don't let this theater fool you like they were working hard, they were sweating it out. They wait until the 11th hour all the time to really push something through like this. They knew that this was part of their homework. They get a big F for taking so long. The United States has days before it runs out of time to pay its bills. I mean, these are the realities right now, and avoid a first ever national default. Washington lawmakers are scrambling to push through a deal that would temporarily suspend the US debt limit, averting a potential disaster for domestic and global economy. This reporting coming from The Guardian. But again, sisters and brothers and family and friends, they already knew this. So don't have warm and fuzzy feelings about these folks. They pushed it to this brink just to have this theater right here. And Dan and I are gonna talk about the theater. The debt ceiling, which caps the amount of debt. We just wanna walk you all through just to refresh some memories. And for some people watching, this may be brand new for you. But the debt ceiling, which caps the amount of debt the US can hold, currently sits at $31.4 trillion. The US hit that limit in January. Since then, the Treasury has taken extraordinary measures to prevent a default. Now, just a reminder, we're asking the government, the federal government, to pay for bills that it owes. Like, this is money we've already expended. So this, again, is not new. Now, dealing with the debt ceiling is about paying that debt. And let's lay out some examples of what type of debt we're talking about, because I want us to all operate from this base knowledge right here. So we're talking about federal employee salaries, the military, Social Security benefits, Medicare, interest on national debt, and tax refunds. Now, there's a whole longer list than the one that we're laying out today, but these are just some key things that we're talking about. So it's important to note the deal would keep. Now, this is it, and this is where Dan and I really gonna lay this out for you. The deal would keep non-defense spending roughly the same for fiscal year 2024 and raise it by 1% in fiscal year 2025. Again, I want to repeat, the deal would keep non-defense spending there. The bill would also place new restrictions on SNAP benefits, limiting the number of individuals eligible for food stamps, and then unspent emergency aid related to COVID-19 pandemic, totaling about $30 billion, will also be returned to the government. Now, I want you to rest right there. Dan, let's bring in Dan. So Dan, for me, I mean, this is a lot to unpack, and you are one of the best people to unpack this with. First of all, the whole notion that only military expenditures are going to be able to arise, but domestic type spending is going to stay where it is and only go up 1% in 2025. I mean, for me right there, that's a non-starter. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's not only a non-starter, it's worse than that, because as we've been talking about, one of the bigger stories in the economy this year is inflation. So if the nominal dollar amount that we're going over is rising by 3%, 4% every single year, if we're only increasing the budget by 1%, that actually means, and that's not some random surprise we just figured out on TYT here, Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy know this. That means that spending is going to effectively be cut in all of those non-defense areas that we just mentioned there. That means people's access to government services. That means people's jobs. I remember back during the Obama administration, my brother got furloughed because he worked for the government. And they're just like, yeah, sorry, we ran out of money. We can't pay you, which is ridiculous in any other kind of business sense. But these politicians will do it. And they'll do it, like you said, in this theatrical kind of way that pushes it towards the very end, not because, of course not, because the country is better for it, but so they could use it as a negotiating tactic and a leverage tactic, so the Republican Party can go, oh, you wouldn't actually let us default, right? Would you? You wouldn't actually let us do that. And the Democrats cave in every single time when it's totally unnecessary.
Every single time. And negotiations 101, you don't start in the middle. You start all the way out so that by the time you all come to agreement that you get a little something, they get a little something. But if you already start capitulating, which the Democrats do every single time, the Republicans, even though they only control, Dan, and they only control one chamber, one lever, and that's the House of Representatives. Not small, but Democrats control the Senate and they control the presidency. And yet the GOP find themselves winning politically. Meanwhile, back in the hoods, and people who watch Unbossed, you hear me talk about the hoods all the time, the rural hoods, the urban hoods, the suburban hoods. I'm talking about where Big Mama and Big Papa live. They are the ones who are losing. Why is it that every time some type of negotiation happens, it is on the backs of the people who need government to work the most? See, that's the riddle me that. See, that's the question I want these elected leaders on the congressional level to answer, but they can't answer that. And they're gonna go do all these press conferences and pat their heads like they've been sweating it out and sweating bullets and like they've been really working very hard, when the bottom line is we're talking about the same coin, just two different sides. I want y'all to understand this, America, and it doesn't matter what side, how you rocking, country, a little bit rock and roll, R&B, a little gospel, something in between. We want you to understand that this situation right here, where number one was avoidable and number two does not benefit you and what you love. You may think that it does, but it absolutely does not.